Welcome to the Mad Ones. I'm Jakob's greatest mistake, Cam Harless, and with me, as always, is your just learn how to make tortillas super white hostess, Miss Jessica Green. How are you doing, Jessica?
Wildly accurate, actually.
Yeah.
I've made tortillas twice. They were really good, though. Yeah.
Yeah,
You
I
nailed
saw
it.
you. I saw you make them, and I guess we're slightly less white than you because we went to a place called Chewy's and we had them when they were made fresh, and so we started making our fresh tortillas like years ago because we were like,
Okay.
this is so much better. And so I was like, man, Jessica's so white.
I'm that white person where I'm like, but my best friend is Mexican. So I haven't had to make my own tortillas, to be fair.
That's true. Well, you doing all right this week?
I'm tired, but I'm making it.
I feel that. Yeah. Also, I'm drinking garbage tonight. I saw these in the store today.
Oh, it's garbage.
Hard Mountain Dew. And it...
Wow. I didn't know you hated yourself this much.
How do you not know that? I mention it every chance I get.
I know that there's that underlying level of self-loathing, but I don't know that anyone who wasn't on the verge of suicide would drink that. So, we're going to talk about this after.
The watermelon's pretty good.
Okay.
Baja Blast is garbage. And so I'm going to try to drink the other two flavors while we're on and let you know what's good and what's not.
Okay.
So
fair enough.
All right.
I'm looking forward to this review.
We should get into the show. Before we do that, I do want to let you guys know that this show is 100% brought to you by the fans and patrons. So hit like, subscribe, and share the show with your friends. That's how we'll grow. If you share our show, more people will see us, more people will subscribe, more people will know who we are. And not just because I got a couple of journalists fired. We've covered all sorts of topics. We have a lot of cool topics coming in the future. One that I haven't briefed Jessica on just yet that she will hear about at the end of the show. So share those topics with people who might like them. We don't want to be a topic or guest-centric show. We want to be cool. We want you to like us, but we do like talking about cool things. So try to join us every time, regardless of the topic or the guest. Also, our Patreon's the best way to support us besides buying a t-shirt from the store. So if you'd like an occasional early episode, a Zoom hangout, and our eternal gratitude, please join us at patreon.com/themadOnes. Also, we have a new patron this week, David. Welcome, buddy. I'm glad you're here.
David.
And so, like I said, you could also grab a shirt or a mug over at wearethemadOnes.com/store, and you can rep us wherever you are. All that's out of the way. You don't have to worry about hearing any of that until the very end in case people come in late. But we're done with the ad stuff now. But joining us tonight is an extremely interesting man. He's the bane of the racist gun control arguments, a snazzy dresser, a jazzy musician, and a good dude all around. I found out the other day that he was raised in the Nation of Islam, and that's a conversation that I couldn't not have. So welcome to the show, HEX, a.k.a. Hexcelerate. What's shaking, buddy?
I'm just here to school you white devils, that's all. No, I'm joking.
We need it.
Like I said right before the show, Nation of Islam people, I didn't know that I'd met someone who had grown up in it. The only people that I know of are like the famous ones. So, Muhammad Ali, Malcolm X, who left, and I think Most Def may be Nation of Islam now. I don't know what his new name is though. But that's interesting. We talked to a guy named Ben not too long ago who grew up in a Mormon polygamist cult, which is also something you don't meet a lot of people who go through that. And so when I heard that, I was like, I'm sure you have some stories to tell, and I'm sure that people have some questions about the Nation of Islam, because I sure do. And I did not have time to Google all the things I wanted to Google before doing this interview. So not to put you too much on the spot here, but we have questions, and I hope you're willing to answer them.
I answer to the best of my ability. It's not something I bring up all the time.
Yeah,
it's something I want to put behind me. So there's a lot that I just don't know. But again, I answer the best I can.
I gotcha.
It's all any of us can ever do.
Right. So let's walk through that. So you were your parents Nation of Islam when you were born, or was that something that y'all converted to later? Like how did that occur?
My great grandmother on my mother's side converted when she was alive at some point. Then my grandmother was born into it. My mom and my aunts and uncles on that side were born into it. And then when she and my dad got together, my dad converted, and then me and two of my sisters were born into it.
Mm-hmm. Is Nation of Islam different than just the Islamic religion?
Yeah, in a few ways, yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, one of the things that I did actually look into is that the guy who started the Nation of Islam's name was
Wallace Fard Muhammad.
Yes, and he started it in Detroit. The story that I gathered from this was that he was trying to sell scarves in Detroit in 1930, and people weren't buying his scarves. And then he started telling them about their people back home and all of these ideas, and that's kind of how that got started. And according up until the 1970s, I think, when Farrakhan took over, my understanding is that Farrakhan kind of turned it more towards like Sunni Islam rather than the Nation of Islam had been. And there's a lot of wild beliefs in there. So tell me what it's like growing up in there, please.
Okay, so, and my camera's already dead. Give me 1 second.
Oh no.
This is what I was going to tell you before we started. Don't be surprised if this happens because I'm running the DSLR.
Okay, I was wondering. It's kind of our fault. We started the live feed right as he was trying to tell us that his camera might go out. So that's kind of on us.
All right, give me 1 second.
Oh, sure. And as we're waiting, guys, if you have questions for him in the chat, go ahead and type them. We might not get to them right this second, but we are collecting them and we will ask. So please feel free to just ask your little hearts away.
And if you have any questions about Jessica's whiteness, you can also ask those, and we'll get to them.
And if you want to question my blackness, do so. That's your own peril. Okay. Growing up in a nation of Islam, largely annoying because most kids don't really care about religion, right? And I just hated having been dragged to our local mosque all the time. As a kid, I would rather just be at my grandmother's house watching cartoons or whatever. But again, what kid wouldn't prefer that? But as I got older and started to understand the world more, I'm like, I do like a lot of the things they do. They go into these like obviously black communities that are just horrible. They go in, they do whatever they can to lift the people up. I'm all for that. I love that. But so you can be pro-black, but that doesn't mean you're anti-white, and you can be pro-white doesn't mean you're anti-black or whatever. But I heard a lot of anti-white racism growing up in the nation, and as I got older, I'm like, this is not okay. I don't want anything to do with this. So
Can you give us an example of what that looks like? Because I've seen, I've heard white devil before. I've heard whisperings of the story of Jacob, but I don't know what that looks like, because we grow up in a country that talks primarily about white racism, white people being racist against everyone. So it's like that difference of reality, I think, or at least experience, is interesting. So like, what were the things that really put you off?
Well, you mentioned the big one, white devil. Like, that's one thing I'll never forget hearing this. The white man is the devil. God, I've heard that so many times. It's burned into my brain. And that it can range from that to like little things about like this is something I've legit heard. Like, white people are nasty because they get ticks or head lice or something like that. Yeah, I've heard that before.
Do black people not get ticks or head lice?
Well, I've never had either, so
I've never had head lice. I have had a tick though. So I don't know. Is that
I grew
something
up
that's rare
poor,
in the
so I've had
Yeah.
both.
I don't know. I mean, it may sound kind of innocuous, but like I said, it can range from something little like that to white people just being just evil.
Right.
Now
right.
Devils.
At this point, I'm just really curious if Black people don't have issues with ticks or lice
I'm sure that
as a
that's
whole.
not the case.
Though I mean, like, you know, like for instance, if I go out in the sun for 3 hours, I'm going to turn a bright shade of red and be in pain for a week. But if Hex does the same thing, he's not going to have the same experience I do. So who knows if ticks and lice are racist? I'm curious.
No, that is something I have heard, that Black people generally don't have a problem with ticks or head lice. Why? I don't know. I really don't know how people came to that conclusion, but
I've just never heard that before. Thank you for bringing that to my attention, because it's like there are these things that maybe they're just like old wives' tales that are so fascinating to me. Like, what? So yeah, so did they teach you the story of Jacob, or how do you say that? Jacob, how do you say it?
Jacob, whatever. Yeah.
Did they teach you that as you were growing up, or was that something that wasn't prominent?
I did hear a little bit of it growing up, but I did have to kind of refresh. I'm going to be completely honest here. I did have to refresh my memory on that before I came on. So, but that did come up.
Oh yeah.
Can y'all clue me in about Yakub?
All right, so he's like the art. The long and short of the story is this Black man grew up like Middle East, like Horn of Africa, Middle Eastern area, known for an unusually large head and for apparently being arrogant. The story is he created white people so he could so that they could oppress the original Black man or something like that.
So yeah, so I
very interesting goal.
I pulled it up because it's fast. Here's some. So in the episode art, you'll see a cauldron with smoke coming out of it and a large-headed Black man on it. That's Yakub. That's the man who 6,600 years ago at the island of Patmos used a scientific method called grafting to create white people.
Somebody accused me of being grafted like 2 days ago, and I had no idea what that meant. Oh my gosh!
Now you know.
Now I know. It's all coming together. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
So Yakub is said to have been born in Mecca at a time when 30% of original Black people were dissatisfied. He was a member of the Meccan branch of the tribe of Shabazz. Yakub required the nickname Big Head because of his unusually large head and his arrogance. At the age of 6, he discovered the law of attraction and repulsion by playing with magnets made of steel. This insight led to a plan to create new people. He saw an unlike human being made to attract others who could, with the knowledge of tricks and lies, rule the original Black man. By the age of 18, he had exhausted all knowledge in the universities of Mecca. He then discovered that the original Black man contained both a black germ and a brown germ. With 59,999 followers, he went to an isle in the Aegean Sea called Palan, which Muhammad identifies with Patmos. There, he established a despotic regime and set about breeding out the Black traits, killed all darker babies, and created a brown race after 200 years. I'm just going to keep reading because this is crazy.
It's a fucking bizarre story.
I'll ask my question afterward. Go ahead.
Yakub died at the age of 152, but his followers carried on his work. After 600 years of this deliberate eugenics, the white race was created. The brutal conditions of their creation determined the evil nature of the new race. By lying to the Black mother of the baby, this lie was born into the very nature of the white baby, and murder for the Black people was also born in them, or made by nature a liar and murderer. The new race traveled to Mecca, where they caused so much trouble they were exiled to West Asia, Europe, and stripped of everything but the language. Once there, they were roped in to keep them out of paradise. The soldiers patrolled the border armed with swords to prevent the devils from crossing. For many centuries, they lived a barbaric life, surviving naked in caves and eating raw meat. But eventually, they were drawn out of the caves by Moses, who taught them to wear clothes. Moses tried to civilize them, but eventually gave up and blew up 300 of the most troublesome of them with dynamite. However, they had learned to use tricknology, a plan to use their lack of empathy, emotion, and trickery to usurp power and enslave the black population, bringing the first slaves to America, according to the autobiography of Malcolm X. All the races, other than the black race, were byproducts of Yaqub's work, as the red, yellow, and brown races were created during the bleaching process. However, the black race included Asian peoples, considered to be shared ancestors of the Moors. Whites were defined as Europeans. Elijah Muhammad also asserted that some of the new white race tried to graft themselves back into the black nation, but they had nothing to go by. As a result, they became guerrillas. A few were lucky enough to make a start and got as far as what you call the gorilla. In fact, all of the monkey family are from this 2,000-year history of the white race in Europe. According to Nation of Islam doctrine, Yaqub's progeny were destined to rule for 6,000 years before the original black peoples of the world regained dominance, a process that had begun in 1914.
Okay.
Yeah.
First of all, Mormons, take a back seat, because if you're going to come up with an origin story and you don't go as ham as the Nation of Islam has done, get out of here, because you're not even trying. Second of all, so if you go to Yaqub and you ask him, why did you do this? His answer would be magnets. Do I understand that part of the story correctly?
Yes.
It seems to be the case.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow. Okay. All right. I just wanted to make sure that I was picking up what you were putting down. Please continue.
Oh my gosh. No, that's I don't need to read more than that. That's wonderful.
That's the whole thing. Okay.
Essentially, yeah. There's more to it, but it's like
That should
that's
be a
the
Netflix
main
show.
Right?
Really? I would watch that. That's fascinating. Especially about how the monkeys came after the human being.
The monkeys.
We're going to get in so much trouble for laughing at this, aren't we?
I hope so. But no, what's funny is the fact that they try, like, it's also racist against black people, because the white people tried to become black again and instead became gorillas. They like missed the mark and became gorillas and monkeys.
Right.
There's a lot going on there.
What?
It's fucking goofy. I hope I'm allowed to swear on here.
No, you're good.
So when I was asking, I in my ignorance asking, so is it different than Muslim religion? You're like, yeah, a little bit. I didn't know. I just didn't know. I'm astonished. Okay. All right.
So
what's the plan then?
Were you taught this as a child, or was this just something you kind of learned later? Like, how does I don't want to say indoctrination, even though I think that word's misused a lot, but how did the teaching go?
Regular people, like, how do regular
this specific
people...
story, or
yeah, well, I mean, this is kind of big, it seems, if Elijah Muhammad was making up monkey stories with it, because he followed up. Also, wait, another thing I heard, which I think maybe Farrakhan has done away with, is that Elijah Muhammad essentially said that the founder, Farad Muhammad, was Allah in human form, and he came to Detroit to speak to Elijah Muhammad, who was the new prophet after Muhammad. It's what I read. I don't know if that's true, but
yeah, I think Farrakhan did away with that.
More than anything, I'd like to know, I guess, like, do regular people internalize this, or is this just something that kind of nobody really talks about?
Well, they call us white devils.
Sure. Yeah, but it's calling someone a white devil. I mean, frankly, I could understand. I could get why someone might refer to white people as devils. I could maybe understand that. The rest of the story, I would like to know, just the regular family living in suburban America. I would think that in order to get people to sign on for this, you couldn't tell a lot of people that story.
Yeah, that's definitely something that came in later.
Right,
Okay.
Right.
I would
So,
think.
Well, that makes me think of Scientology, because Scientology woos you in with these classes to become a better person, to become a great actor, become, whatever,
Right.
to clear your body thetans or whatever. And it's not until like you've paid like $1 million to them that they start telling you about Lord Xenu. So I mean, that's one way that some cults do it.
Yeah.
I
mean, I would say that Nation of Islam operates similarly. They get people in like, they want to get like Black people in America to a better spot than where a lot of them are. Which, again, I don't have a problem with that. I'm all for that.
Right. But is it
But
predatory?
then, say what?
But is it predatory? Are they doing it for the right reasons? Or are they doing it just to hook the people in?
I think it's a little bit of both.
Okay.
To be honest with you, I think they are actually out to do some good, but
It's one of those. Go ahead,
at the expense of like calling people like you all white devils or whatever, and keeping like a racial divide going. At least that's my personal opinion.
Sure.
So
go ahead. I have a question too, but you go ahead first.
No, I was just going to say, so what is the overall plan within the Nation of Islam? Is it 6,000 years from 1913 that things are going to change? Like, what's the goal? Because I know that, if you ask me what's the goal of Christianity, I'm like, well, the resurrection of all at the end. Like, I can tell you that. Is there some kind of ultimate plan or hope within Nation of Islam?
That's a good question.
I like asking those.
No, I think a part of it does kind of line up with like more traditional Islam.
Okay.
Where it's kind of similar to Christianity, but there's also the whole, I guess, Black people rule again. I don't know.
Okay, all right.
Do we return to Africa, or do we take over America, or do they? Because I'm not in it anymore. I don't know.
So, because as Cam was reading this story, that was kind of in my mind too. Like, okay, so now what? Like, what do we do with all of this? Like, is there sort of like a impetus or a raison d'etre, a reason for being, or is it just, hey, white people suck, so that's it? Like, I don't know. It just seems like there ought to be a goal, maybe, or maybe that's my,
They
culture.
probably did have.
I don't know.
I think at one point there was
a
legit goal, and there might still be, but fucking they've been infiltrated by COINTELPRO, so
yeah.
Wait, I'm sorry. Oh, I see. Okay, all right.
Well, one of the things that's interesting is that Master Farad Muhammad allegedly, well, first off, he wasn't Black.
He's Turkish, if I remember right.
He was Middle Eastern for sure. But he, according to the Nation of Islam, he just disappeared. He didn't die. No one knows where he died. He disappeared. And so that's why some people have said that he was Allah, the God of Islam. It was because he was here and he was gone and no one knows where he went. He just disappeared from the public record. And that's so wild.
One thing I do like explicitly remember hearing growing up in the nation was this thing about these quote unquote mother planes, which are basically aliens, more or less. Okay. And the going theory is that he's alive and well on one of those planes, and apparently so is Elijah Muhammad.
So planes as in like, let's say dimensions, or as in other planets kind of deal?
Flying saucers, basically.
Okay, so essentially physical.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, I gotcha. That kind of plane. Okay, because in my mind, I'm thinking about like dimensions and stuff. Because one time when I was working at a company, where I was selling people like encrypted email and ways to make their life better on computers, I ended up speaking to a guy named Wiley Brooks, who claimed to be a breatharian. And so he says he didn't eat meat. He didn't eat anything. All he ate was food he breathed and food from the fifth dimension.
Which
and I don't know if you know what fifth dimensional food looks like, but you can get it at McDonald's if you order a double quarter pounder with cheese and a Diet Coke.
Right. It's on their website. That's the best part. Like, it's really on there. They really like, hey, we survive on nothing but air and fifth dimension food. And you're like, that's wild. That fifth dimension food is Big Macs and Diet Coke. And you're like, oh, you're straight up crazy. Cool.
I imagine these people aren't particularly fit either.
No.
Dude's skinnier than a rail. And if you go to his website, he talks about all of the people that he was in past lives, and he was a lot of contemporaries. So he wasn't just Jesus of Nazareth. He was also John the Baptist at the same time.
All right.
I mean, it's just
acid is a hell of a drug.
Right.
Well, I think that the alien theory is really interesting, because that seems to be one of those ways, especially within, 200 years ago, if you're creating a new religion, it's some take on Jesus or Muhammad or something like that. Purely,
right.
Let's take Christianity, let's change it so that it's effectively a completely different thing, but still call ourselves that, and lead people in this direction, which, as Christians would say, away from Christianity, away from God.
Hey, Arius, we're talking about you.
But if you look at the last little bit, a lot of the ones that have gotten bigger have alien connections. So there's Nation of Islam, and there's also, what was the other one? Oh, Scientology has alien connections. There's a lot when the modern world, when religion started being thought up in the 20th century, aliens became a part of it. And I find that absolutely fascinating, because I think it really shows the progression of the human mind, and how when they're creating these religions, they try to use things that appeal to the zeitgeist. So, there are people out there who believe in aliens or alien seed theory, and they tell you they were an atheist all day long, but they believe in this alien seed theory because it goes along with science. And so it's just interesting how these movements progress in time to meet the current understanding of the world.
Right.
Random rant. Sorry. Just something I thought of.
That is interesting, though.
So
I do have a question, though. I know that
okay.
A friend of mine has told me that when you walk away from Islam, there's no changing religions. You're an apostate. It's an anathema. And some people will be violent to you as a result. You are a man who came into this as a child and then has left as an adult, I assume?
I got out when I was 16.
16? Okay. And did they make that difficult on you, or is it something that, like, you had the free choice to come and go as you pleased? Like, what was the effect on your life of leaving?
No, that no one was like nasty to me or anything after that. Like, my dad, I guess both my parents, of course, didn't care for my decision really, but they kind of have to respect it, and every once in a while I would see someone I knew who attended our local mosque, and they would be like, hey, we need you to come back because we got younger people here or whatever. But no, it was never like, no, fuck you, you're go to hell. It was never any of that.
That's good. That's good. And so, like, within your family and your community, you were still able to, like, see your parents, see your family, all that stuff. That's good. Because I will say, for the Mormons, although they need to get on the ball as far as their story writing goes, when their kids leave, they don't get to see their brothers and sisters. They don't get to see their parents. Like, it is extreme cutoff. Like, you're out in the world naked, and you have intentionally been kept from understanding the world. So it's like you're being thrown to the wolves. And, so that was a question. So when somebody leaves a religion or a construct like that, I'm always curious what kind of like experience did you have afterward? And were you integrated enough into the secular world to, adapt really well?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. So so it wouldn't have been as hardcore as anything like LDS or anything like that.
Right. Yeah. And that was kind of one of the reasons I left, because, I'm in high school now and I'm talking to not just Black people, white people, Asians, Hispanics. And then also at this time, I'm starting to really get into social media and the internet. And I'm now, and at that point, I'm talking to people all over the world. And it's like, no, I don't feel like white people are out to keep me down. Some might be, but vast majority, not really.
Well, I'm not going to lie. White women are pretty good looking things. All women have that. I'm an individualist in that way. If you're good looking, you're good looking, regardless of any of that. But all I'm saying,
Cam's literally just telling us
hot.
He's just telling us his sexual preferences right
My
now.
wife is hot.
Yeah,
and you know what? I understand. I understand why I wouldn't want to call her a white devil.
I get.
She is a white devil, absolutely. But she's hot,
so it's all good.
A lot of things going on right now.
Sorry, I've had 2 hard Mountain Dews, and so I'm having a fun time. It's on to the 3rd.
Which flavor are you on now? Gryffindor? What are you doing?
Mountain Dew.
It's just Mountain Dew flavor?
Yeah, this one's just Mountain Dew. I had Baja Blast. I had watermelon. And
That's
now I'm moving on to regular Mountain Dew.
Just a lot of lazy writing.
Yeah. It's almost like Master Fahad Muhammad made these.
Why can't you drink beer like a man?
Excuse me, miss. Have you seen my shelf of bourbon? I think I've proven myself.
Yeah, but you're holding that Mountain Dew. Yeah, no, bourbon is a fine drink, but you're holding that.
And because I'm like, that looks weird and gross, and I have this thing about me that's like, if it's weird and gross but somewhat palatable, I'm going to try it.
Okay.
That's just me. I do it with everything. But let's move back to the thing.
Sure, sorry. We're getting sidetracked.
So let me ask. You lived in a quasi Muslim world. Did that mean that you followed the Muslim dietary restrictions? Like, did you worry about haram and halal?
Yeah, like no pork. Like to this day, I still won't eat pork because of grown up Muslim. Sure. Because my parents, well, of course, A, pork is prohibited in Islam, and B, my parents hammered that in my head so hard. That's just a habit that I'm not going to kick. But I do like to drink.
All I'm saying is that if I ever get a chance to make a pork butt pulled pork sandwich and you don't eat it, I'll be sad on the inside. Because I can cook that shit good.
I think it's really fascinating that the culinary aspect is what like really took. And that's fascinating to me because I think that like food really does connect us. And like when you smell something that your grandmother used to make, for example, that like instantly takes you back to a different place in a different time. And so, despite, leaving behind the theology, leaving behind the the ideas, the culinary stuff, that's unshakable. And I find that really cool.
Yeah. And that's another thing that I think that the Nation of Islam was also good on, was like health as far as like eating goes. They were really big into that. Like basically the idea of intermittent fasting, where you only eat once a day. I learned that in the Nation of Islam.
Yeah. I that's not different necessarily than like Orthodox fasting, that we have, maybe a half to a third of our year where we're, eating very little. We don't eat meat. That doesn't mean that we're not meat eaters, or that like, when we can, I get on that bacon as much as I can. Right. I do think that there is a healthful quality to self-denial.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me ask. So one of the things that's really interesting about Judaism, Israel, Israel. Why did I say it like that? Israel is, their dietary laws include one that is so there's this verse that says that you should not cook a baby goat in its mother's milk. And for millennia, it seemed like they didn't know what this law was about. Like, you can understand the law against pork, especially in that time when they didn't have really good refrigeration, preserving, because there's a lot of bugs and stuff that you can eat in pork, and it parasites that hurt you. But over the years, this came out in like the different, I don't know if it was the Midrash or if it was the what's the other thing? I don't know. But they had essentially decided that what this meant was that if you mixed dairy and meat, that was something you couldn't do.
Yeah.
And they had a lot of people had talked about it in the commentaries about how this was because you don't mix life and death. So milk being life, meat being death. And so that was this understanding for millennia. And then if you look at there was some archaeologists actually went into the kind of the Sumerian region, the Mesopotamia, and they found records of this boiling a kid in his baby goat in its mother's milk was a part of a pagan ritual. It was a part of a sacrificial rite within a pagan religion. And so that was, and then so people have talked about this since. Maybe what this was, it wasn't cheeseburgers. It was in fact trying to steer clear of other gods, false gods.
That makes sense. That would make sense.
Right. Yeah. And so it's very fascinating to look at this and kind of flesh out history and see where humans kind of take this stuff. All of that to say, I find that a fascinating anecdote. But do they have the same rules within Islam and within the Nation of Islam?
No, Islam, they don't go that far.
So you can have cheeseburgers.
Yeah, pretty much.
Good.
Nice.
Yeah, just no pork, basically no pork and no alcohol, even though, like I said, I do drink.
Right.
But
I know a lot of Muslims who do, actually, which is interesting because, human beings like the creature. But to add on to the story that Cam just told, there's a community in, it's one of the Asian countries, I can't remember, I want to say Laos, where some of the group that live there are believed to have come from Israelites who, during the diaspora, had moved there. And they have a pork dish that they add ashes to. And it is a tradition within Hebrew culture to rub ashes on yourself as a penitential aspect. I'm not exactly sure how that works, but there is the ash rubbing aspect. So the adding of the ashes to this pork dish is a way of acknowledging that it's a meal of shame. And so these Laotians who were, and forgive me if I've gotten the country wrong, please tell me the right country if you know it, but they add the ashes to the pork in order to acknowledge that, this is a meal of shame.
Yeah. Okay, so you mentioned the ashes. One of the old, and it's something that people still do to this day, do in their sorrow is they would wear sackcloth. So just think like potato sacks, essentially. And they would tear their clothes and they would rub ashes on their head. And I think that I can't say this in particular. I haven't studied this exactly, but what I would say is it does conjure up the image of the first man being made from dust and his returning to dust. And so it's that remembrance of death, I think. So that's what I would throw in there as a possibility.
The way that the culinary aspects are mixed with the spiritual aspects are really fascinating to me. If anybody knows of like really good books on this topic, please let me know, because I want to delve into this because this is so fascinating to me.
So when you were growing up, did you have Nation of Islam heroes, or were you always just kind of like, this is kind of dumb? Because it seems like you kind of didn't like it.
Yeah, like I said, when I was growing up, especially when I was way younger, I didn't care. I didn't like going to the mosque. at all, really. And if I did, it's because, and the only reason I even did is because I had friends growing up that I was really cool with that I liked seeing. So if I got to see them, then that made it worth it.
Did the mosques, were they just modern buildings, or were they kind of made after the other mosques, the way other mosques?
No, they're basically just like modern buildings.
Okay.
Yeah, that they just fix up the interior to how they would like, and yeah.
All right. So one of the things I mentioned, and I said I wouldn't ask you the question because you didn't know off the top of your head, but I have some thoughts now that we've talked a little bit. Is not recently, I guess last year, we talked to Hotep Jesus on the show, and he's a part of that Hotep movement, which is these are essentially Black people who identify with these Egyptian ideas. And when I had asked, what was that?
A lot. I like the Hoteps.
A lot of them are super cool. But one of the questions that I asked him was how they got along with the Black Hebrew Israelites, because from a white person perspective, these are very similar concepts. They come from the same part of the world. They're claiming to be something from a specific part of the world and a specific part of history, etc. And he looked at me like I was stupid. And you know what? I kind of was. I should have known that there was animosity between the Egyptians and the Israelites, because there is in the Bible, right?
Yeah. Right.
I should have thought
pyramids,
of that.
It was a huge thing.
Right.
Enslavement, pyramids,
Right. But, in my mind, I'm thinking of it in terms of, because they talk about how pro-Black they are, that I would have thought there was some sort of leeway between these groups. Like, because they are Black, they may have some different idea, but they're not, they don't have running beef. But I was way wrong about that. And so I had asked you if you thought that the Nation of Islam would have the same sort of beef with the Hoteps or with the Black Hebrew Israelites that existed within that framework. And as I was reading, I noticed that he had that they had one of the teachings was about how the grafting happened, they became white, and then they enslaved the people, the Black people, and sent them, to America and other places, right?
Right.
Which the idea within the kind of the Hotep movement is that the Black people didn't start as slaves, that they were here first. And it kind of goes against the common ideas of slavery in America and slavery in the world. And so I do think, even though it may not be out there, but I do think there's going to be beef there. If you were like an adherent, I think there'd be some sort of beef there because of that.
I would agree. Like, I guess the reason I'm kind of lost on this particular point is because I never heard anything about the Black Hebrew Israelites growing up, to be honest. Like, that for me, that's like a newer thing to me.
You can drive down the road in my town and drive past them, and they'll be at different ends of streets at stop signs, and they'll it's so funny because you'll be driving, everyone will go to the same stop sign and stop. But every Black, and I noticed this when I was there, because, I was just kind of seeing who they were and like looking at what was going on, wondering, are they going to talk to me? What's going to happen? The two cars in front of us were Black people, and they stopped at the stop sign. They talked to them and gave them a tract and all of this. And then I got up there and they stayed on their side of the road. They didn't talk to us. They didn't say anything to us. We kept going. People behind us were also Black. They came up to their window, and I was like, okay, that's fascinating. I mean, I understand it. I get it. But still, like, I didn't know what I was going to see. And that was so interesting to me.
Yeah.
Did you feel left out?
I believe the Lord left me out when he made my skin this pasty white.
That's right. Yeah, he did.
No, I have heard people say that, like, if you think like the Nation of Islam is like a extreme pro-Black separatist movement, then the Black Hebrew Israelites are like 10 times that. And that would make sense.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there were some cool people in the Nation of Islam. Like I said, Muhammad Ali was Nation of Islam. Before he joined, he was Cassius Clay, and he had a name change. I forget what Most Def's name changed to. I think it was Yusuf something. But Most Def became Nation of Islam, and Malcolm X, who is the other side of the coin of Martin Luther King, was Nation of Islam till he wasn't. When you were leaving and when you started looking into this and kind of disagreeing with certain parts, was Malcolm X and what he decided any part of your decision?
Yes. No, it's funny because I think about Malcolm X's life, and I see a few parallels between his life and mine. Like, so in Islam,
you both look badass in gun pictures.
I appreciate that. No, so one of the tenets of Islam is at some point before you die, you have to make a pilgrimage to Mecca in Saudi Arabia. And he went, this is after he left the Nation of Islam. And what he noticed was there were people from all over the world there. Right. Black people, white people, Asians, like everyone. So then that's when his views on race started to change. And even though I didn't go to Mecca myself, talking to like I said, my high school is a bit more diverse than my middle school, and then also being on the internet and talking to all kinds of people.
Yeah. Right.
You just, in my opinion, you just got to look at people as people. Like, there are a lot of great Black people, but there are also a lot of shitty Black people, and that rule applies to white people, Hispanics, Asians, Arabs, whoever.
Individualism, man.
Exactly.
You look at the person and you decide whether or not you want to be around them.
Yeah, pretty much.
Kind of kills me about like people who say you have to actively fight racism. The thing that fights racism is literally just talking to other people.
Exactly.
You have to start having conversations. There's no need to fight. In fact, fighting is the problem. So try a little peace,
Yeah, like just have an honest conversation like we are.
Right. Absolutely.
So the
that being said, though, I do want to say, though, that being said, I guess when Malcolm was still in the Nation, I guess one of his big things is, okay, white people, if you don't like us, we'll stay over here and we'll do our own thing. I'm not opposed to that either.
Right.
Me being more libertarian minded, I'm all about voluntary interactions between people. So
sure.
If you're someone who prefers to interact with people of your own race, more power to you.
Right.
Myself, I'll interact with whoever. Like I said, are you a good person or are you a piece of shit? Is all I care about.
Right. Yeah. It's a fine requirement. Just don't be a piece of shit. And I feel like we could get along probably.
One of the things that, if I'm remembering correctly, I believe that Hoteps are Black nationalists like Nation of Islam, like the Black Hebrew Israelites. But I'm pretty sure the Hoteps are Black separatists as well. Is Nation of Islam primarily separatist, or do they want to kind of enter? Because, I mean, you see Farrakhan on stuff. You see him talk to people who are not Black. Is it more of like an integration and takeover situation, or is it a separate situation?
I still view them as more separatists. Like, they do acknowledge, like, there are like Latinos, for example. I used to always hear them acknowledge any Latinos or anyone else of a different race who are in the Nation, but I think it's still very much a separatist movement.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I like the idea that if people want to have their own separate communities, that they should be absolutely free to do that. There were some people who went off and started their own like Black only community. And I want to say it was in Arizona somewhere. And a lot of people were really upset by that idea. And I was kind of like, I think that the problem that we're having here is the idea that you're not allowed in. And you think that you should be allowed in everywhere, But as a woman, I want there to be women's only spaces. I want there to be places where men cannot go. For example, a locker room, a gym, there are women only.
But
a bathroom.
They're trying to fucking the establishment and their cronies are trying to take that away.
So the idea that just taking America, for example, that you have 350 million of us, roughly walking around that we're all going to be the same, we're all happy together, and we should all just be crammed into the same culture, and that's definitely going to work. Well, it's not, is it? Our society
No.
is like collapsing because you're trying to force 350 million discrete individuals into the same box. And we're going to tear each other apart if we do that. As opposed to, you have your Cuban community over here, you have your Laotian community over here. And you know what? Every once in a while, we all get together and eat. It sounds like a much better idea than trying to force us all to be, Gap jeans wearing, potato eaters. I just don't see how that's going to work out.
Potatoes are delicious.
Just meaning like conforming to like the traditional American culture.
No, I know. I'm just
right.
joking.
But no, I think I meant to say French fry eater would be more accurate.
I thought you were taking a dig at the Irish, and I was fine.
No, I'm totally Irish. But yeah, no, I think I meant more accurately French fry eater, that we're all going to wear blue jeans and eat French fries, and we're all going to be happy like that. No.
Freedom fries. But one of the things that I find interesting, and I think that this is why so many people are angry when there are Black only spaces or women only spaces. I think maybe why white men get a little up in their craw, and white women do as well in different areas, is because we all want our own spaces in some way. Like a men's only space is a really cool thing at times, but over the past 100 200 years, that's been invaded by women. And so it's like when you see women wanting women's only spaces, not you, but like people who want these women's only spaces, but also want to inhabit the men's spaces, I understand why there's some frustration with that hypocrisy.
Sure. Yeah.
I don't care though. Just do what you want. I'll start my own club with blackjack and hookers.
Exactly. I will say, as far as the men's clubs go, I think it's been a great detriment to our culture to get rid of men's only spaces, because then you don't have a place where men can just be men. And so they're just being men out in the world, and we're going, no, don't be like that. And so you're literally saying men can't be men because it's not conducive to society. It's like, well, they used to have toxic masculinity. So they used to have a lodge. You used to be able to go to the lodge and drink with boys and get all your stupid, sexist jokes out with the boys. And then you could come home and be with your family. There was a separation of the spaces here. And now we're all mixing it together. Your wife doesn't want to hear your sexist jokes. Go to the lodge. Bring back the men's clubs. That's what I say.
Yeah, I agree. I agree wholeheartedly.
Well, and I don't know if you know this. Do you know what the last big men's club that was made for drinking and carousing and being men together was called when it came out, when people found out about it?
The VFW?
No, the Proud Boys.
Oh.
It was literally a men's drinking club, and they became fascists. They became all of the things that the left hated. And and what's hilarious about it is the name of the club comes from a line in a song from the musical Aladdin. So they're gay too.
Hold up. Back up. Let's back up just a little bit to Aladdin.
Yes. Yeah. I don't. Well, let me actually Google the line. But yeah. So what's his name? Gavin McInnes started the Proud Boys, and they call it a hate group now, but. Proud Boys founder Gavin McInnes said inspiration for the group's name came from "Proud of Your Boy," a song from the stage musical Aladdin.
Oh, okay, not the movie. I got you.
Yeah. No, I said a musical.
Sorry. But the movie is a musical too, so.
Yeah, but it's animated. So when I say musical, I mean like Tony's and garbage like that. So yeah, it comes from a Aladdin musical song's name. And they are considered a hate group and the worst white nationalists in the country.
Okay. Yeah, no, this is exactly the kind of thing I'm talking about, is when like men try to get together to be men. It's like an anathema, like, oh my God, can you believe that they're being men? And you're like, yeah. And you're not giving them any place to do that. So it's going to like leak out all over into the rest of society. And frankly, as a woman, I'm tired of it. I really wish y'all would go off and have your own little club.
Yeah, leave me out of it, please. I'm not interested in being a proud boy, but
so many balls. They're everywhere. Can't get away from them.
Oh man. So wow. Nation of Islam is a very interesting little sect because like we talked about, it definitely started in a weirder way. And then Farrakhan tried to make it a little bit more Sunni Muslim. And I think that most likely that's what that conversation with that Farrakhan was having affected, what's his name? Malcolm X, which made him go on a pilgrimage after getting out of the Nation of Islam and destroying that whole worldview. So it is an interesting thing that would you say that it's an almost self-destructive ideology, or do you think that it has legs and will last?
Oh, that reminded me of my question. Go ahead. All
right. Okay. All right. Let's get Cam's question out of the way. I do think about that often. Like, I laugh, but I do often think maybe do they have points here or there? Maybe, but
right.
I do think it is a self-destructive ideology.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That parlays into my question, which I forgot and he reminded me of, thankfully. Do you think that overall, because it is something that uplifts people, that it's better for it to exist than to not exist?
In some regards, yes. And for example, like before my dad got into it, he was wild, just out in the streets. And this is obviously before I was even alive, but just out in the streets doing whatever. And arguably, had it not been for the nation, he probably wouldn't be alive, and then neither would I. So,
oh wow,
I give him props there.
Yeah. So in that way, everything is a trade-off in this world, and there is, you do take the good with the bad because you can't have it any other way. That's just not the nature of life on Earth. Because I noticed when I did my cursory Googling of this topic 10 minutes before we got on. I'm sorry. I noticed that the
busy week.
I've been making so many tortillas, but anyway, the Nation of Islam is listed as a hate group by the Southern Poverty Law Center. And when you click on the Nation of Islam section, the reason that they're listed as a hate group is anti-Semitism. So it's not the anti-whiteness necessarily.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Farrakhan, he said, I've heard Farrakhan say some shit about Jews. Yeah.
Is it as bad as the shit about whites?
Say what? Yeah.
Is it okay.
Yeah, but you can talk shit about white people all day long and
right. They're not listed as a hate group.
Right, but say something about the Jews. No.
Oh no, that's it. Yeah.
Weird distinction.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting because when you look at the Wikipedia for Nation of Islam, one of the first things it talks about is the wiping out of the white race. Did they use the term wiping out? Yeah, they did. The wiping out of the white race. Yeah, that's what what's his crazy face? Manson. That was his whole shit.
Helter Skelter.
Right. So that seems to the wiping out of the white race seems to be a much higher on the list tenet than the anti-Semitism, but it's the anti-Semitism that the Southern Poverty Law Center kind of like gravitates on. And interestingly enough, there's a bunch of these dudes like in my area. So I have
Islam guys.
Yes. Yeah. Nation of Islam guys. I've had encounters. I used to live in downtown Atlanta. For most of my adult life, I lived in downtown Atlanta. And so when you would be on the public transit, there would be a lot of guys who would be like handing out material. And
like final calls and bean pies and incense or whatever.
Yeah, there's all of that because there's like there'll be a little stand and they'll have like I know the word. Hold on. It's like the shirt. There's a shirt that's got like the pattern on it. Dashiki, yeah. So there's dashikis, there's incense, they're handing out information. And Most of them are super mean because I'm white and I get it. Most of them are really mean, but I did encounter a guy one time who was willing to talk to me. And this was only maybe because it was like 2 a.m. We were all hammered. We were coming home from a concert and I was talking to him. So he kind of decided to respond to me. And so it was white people, white people, white people. And I was like, hey, man, when you say white people, do you mean the government? And he said, yes. And I was like, oh, I get it. Okay, continue. Like I could frame it in my mind. But it doesn't seem like he did mean the government. It just seemed like he was being polite. And now looking back at the situation, I kind of like appreciate him trying to be polite because none of the other Nation of Islam adherents I had run into on the MARTA bothered with that. Like I'd like it to the point where I was just like walking home from work or whatever, and some people would scream some shit at me. I was like, did that guy just call me a devil? Like it's fine. I'm kind of a bitch, but a little bit.
Yeah, and no, government corruption and stuff is something else the Nation of Islam, I gotta give them props for because they are good on that. But but then Farrakhan gets on camera and basically disparages the Second Amendment he recently did, and it's like you're going around basically acting like the Klan are still riding around on horseback, burning crosses in people's lawns, but you argue against private firearm ownership. What?
And some of that white firearm ownership, that fight against it, or black firearm ownership, gun control, was based out of people in the Nation of Islam who carried guns and Black Panthers who carried guns. Like this is
right.
This is a common narrative. Like,
Malcolm X was the proponent of it. There's that picture of him with the gun.
Yep.
Yeah, a very famous photograph.
I'm telling you, you just need to recreate that photo and make it your profile.
I want to actually.
You gotta.
Well, if you're ever in Atlanta, let me know. I do a little shooting.
All right, I'm down
with a camera.
I mean, sure, if you want to go to a range after or before.
I'm cool with that too. Georgia Gun Club, they have ladies' night, so
that's a man's only space.
I keep trying to get some of my girlfriends to go to this Georgia Gun Club ladies group, and they're just like, I don't know, I've never shot a gun before, and I'm like, what are you gonna do?
Wait,
when the rapists come?
The
Georgia Gun Club or the Governor's Gun Club?
No, the Georgia Gun Club.
Because in West Atlanta, there's the Governor's Gun Club. And we lived there, and I was like, I want to go. I want to see what guns the governor has.
I feel on some level I'm constantly trying to get guns into the hands of women, and so I understand that like impetus of like get guns into the hands of my people so we are not victims. That is a huge step up in the leveling the playing field of the world. And so constantly I am just like, girl, let's go shoot, and it's always like, oh, I don't know. No, come on, girl. Let's go shoot.
I have to ask you, Hex.
Okay.
Did you give PP Steve, aka Colonel Angus, an N-word card?
No, I didn't. I did see that use. I thought it was funny though. I did think it was funny, so I don't know. But to be honest, that word doesn't really me personally, but
yeah.
Right.
Well, I mean, I spent a lot of time. I grew up in Alabama, so some of my first friends were black kids. I went on tour with a black dude who made me use the word because he thought it was stupid that I was scared of it.
Or it was funny to watch you squirm.
Yeah, but it was like a life lesson for me. Like it really was. But most of the people that I've known who I've talked to of the black persuasion don't care as long as you're being friendly and you're using it in the right way.
Yeah, context is important. A lot of people like to just pretend the context isn't there or that it doesn't matter and that you can't say it at all, which I think is just stupid.
Do you remember when Joe Rogan got in trouble for saying the N-word on the podcast?
I was just thinking of that too. I was literally just thinking of that.
There was the people who ran that smear campaign was a political action committee called Midas Touch.
Yes.
And Midas Touch went on, and they were talking about how there's never a context for it. You should never say that. And it was hilarious because Dave Portnoy from Barstool Sports had the three brothers who started Midas Touch on his program, and Dave Portnoy kind of stops the middle of the conversation. He goes, I have screenshots from one of your fiancés that show you using the word in a conversation over text. Is that context okay?
Got him.
Completely called them out in the most wonderful way, because it's just these white people. Because these weren't black dudes. These weren't.
I figured they were white people.
White dudes.
They would have to be. Come on.
Right.
Just hearing that story without any other context, they're white people. Joe Biden had the same thing. They pulled up a video of him from the 80s or the early 90s where he's using the word a couple times in a row. Hard R. Right. And they're all like, oh no, you got to understand the context. And I'm like, up.
But y'all went after Joe Rogan.
Yeah, right. And so, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. It's not like I don't understand that there's context. Of course there's context, but you don't get to use it. You don't get it. Must slap it out of your hand. Try again.
So let's go through some of the questions that have popped up throughout this conversation so far. Colonel Angus asks, did Hex ever hear Farrakhan speak?
I've actually seen him in person.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
I have, because he's based in Chicago, and I've been to Chicago a few times so Nation of Islam, they have their own holiday called Savior's Day. And I think it's, if I remember right, it's in February. And if I remember, it has something to do with basically the birth of God or something like that, if I remember right.
Okay, and every Savior's Day is a holiday of the Nation of Islam commemorating the birth of its founder, Master Wallace Farooq Muhammad, officially stated to be February 26th, 1877.
Wow. This has been going on for a long time.
Yep. So every February they'll put on a bunch of stuff in Chicago, and members from around the country and even like worldwide will come in and do whatever. So I've been to Chicago a few times and have seen him speak in person.
Interesting.
Okay.
So go ahead.
Have you ever met him?
No.
No. Okay.
Okay.
I'm sure he's a hard guy to get close to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would assume so. So another thing I just want to point out, Makabe Designs said, hey, it's the Macabre Hammer. Don't know if
I know who she is. She's one of my Twitter mutuals.
Sweet.
What's up?
Let's see. Yeah, MB says that you need better lighting and to fix the camera so you can actually see it.
I don't know. You have a whole like noir thing going on with it. It
wasn't intentional. It's just
dramatic.
I didn't feel like moving my light, so I was just like, okay.
Well, I finally lightened up my background just a little bit to get out of the you're just in the darkness cam. Are you a goth back there cam, etc.
I like your lighting. I think it's cool.
Okay, so Makabe Designs asks, aside from Farrakhan's ranting, is there really a thing about Jews being ultra devils or something?
Yeah, pretty much. Like, I guess this isn't exclusive to the Nation of Islam. I've heard this elsewhere about how there are a bunch of Jews running the world and whatever. I did hear a lot of that in the Nation too.
Huh. I'm the only one who sometimes, obviously I'm not the only one, but sometimes online you feel like you're the only person who isn't anti-Semitic. Like
it could feel that way because there's so many anti-Semites on Twitter.
Oh yeah.
So Quest asks, how does the lice thing square with sickle cell anemia? I don't know.
I don't think that's true, to be honest, but
I don't know. That's just something I heard.
Jessica, Google it.
Okay.
Find out for us about lice and ticks.
What you want me to do is to type into my Google search bar, do black people get lice?
Yes,
Do I understand what you're requesting
Do
from
it.
me?
and ticks.
All right. So if
Do it,
this
just do
comes
it.
up later to bite me in the ass in court, I'm blaming you for this.
That's fine with me. I'm
You
fine
I'm
with
gonna tell them you
black
got permission
people
from me.
get
They should
like
never
a,
let you off.
I got a lice pass from HEX. All right. Do black people get? Oh, it's like the second search. So the
Tell
first
me.
thing is, do black people get skin cancer? They do. I know that for a fact.
Yeah.
The second search was, do black people get lice? So this is like a question.
Tell us.
Okay, so this headline starts out that black people do get head lice. However, and let me click it because there's a however here. Okay, prevalence in African American people. African American people can still get head lice. However, the CDC, Center for Disease Control, state that African American people get head lice much less frequently than other people. The reason for this may be that most head lice in the United States have claws that more easily grip onto uncoiled hair. Oh, it's an evolution thing. They've evolved to specifically go after a certain type of hair.
Yeah, that's what I
interesting.
have heard. And
Ah,
my hair is
Okay.
curling as all get out. So
evolutionary advantage.
And
What?
ticks are lice are racist.
Yeah.
It's because they're white. But Google ticks too, and I'm gonna ask another
Okay.
question. Colonel Angus, you know him, you love him. Listen to that pun in that name. Didn't Farrakhan push for gun purchases not long ago?
I feel like I remember him saying that.
I don't.
But
he probably could have. I'm not going to say
Maybe.
he didn't because I don't know.
Let's see. Elephant Man, I think this is more of a general question, so not specifically for you, Hex. Why do humans have a need for religion? I think this is an interesting question, and I will answer it from the Christian perspective because that's what I am. I do believe that when God created humans, he made us in his image, and in doing so created us with the desire to be with him and to be in communion with him. And so one thing that's a good thing about humanity, I think. The bad thing about humanity, and I think this is a good definition of what quote unquote sin is, which the word itself means missing the mark. But what man is really good at is trying to fill legitimate needs in illegitimate ways. And so that's why when Paul wrote in the Bible about, true religion is taking care of the widow and the orphan. He was trying to recenter it around the actual meaning of religion, which is to be that connection with God. And so I do think human beings as a whole have a desire for connection with the eternal that they're unable to access temporally. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's a good explanation.
Fascinating reversal on the tick issue.
Okay.
Unlike the lice, black people, white people get bit about the same amount by ticks, but in 34% of black patients, the neurological signs of Lyme disease were present, as opposed to 9% in white patients.
Huh.
So
that's interesting.
That's interesting, isn't it? And, so most tick-borne infections occur during the summer, but black people were more likely to be diagnosed outside of the typical Lyme disease season. But this may suggest a delay in early diagnosis. So there are extraneous factors that could be playing a role in here. Right.
One part of the diagnosis that's very simple for doctors to see is when you get bitten by a tick, it creates essentially a circle around it, a target. Right. So if that is, let's say, not as clear due to complexion, I can see why it would be caught later.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, my friend who was bit by a tick, she can no longer eat red meat.
Wild.
Yeah.
I have heard that. It kind of makes you allergic to red meat, which would suck.
Some people get over it, but she hasn't yet.
My friend Josh Hires, who I've spoken highly of in the past, I found out just recently that he has Lyme disease. And over the last year, he's felt very close to death. It's not something that kills most people, but it can. if it goes long enough without being taken care of. And so I do want to invite him on to talk about that situation and just to catch up, if that's cool with you. Just throwing that out there.
Did he get the meat allergy?
I don't know. That would be a good question.
I have learned so many things today. And I didn't know that I was going to learn about ticks and lice during this conversation. But I have to say the information that I got was contrary to my assumption. And I'm glad to be disabused of my my ignorance on this. Yeah, I guess I have a lot of tick information in my head now.
All right. So the next thing I wanted to pull up, it's not a question, but MB said, I've never seen this podcast before, but I really like these two. Great presence and really insightful questions. What professional interviews? New sub.
Oh,
welcome, buddy. I'm so glad you're here.
Yeah, me too.
I can't believe I just got called professional. Unless he's referring to you all, then yeah, I agree. But
he cannot possibly be referring to us. I just don't see it.
Have you seen me in Forest Mommy show? I'm as far from professional.
Oh, I love her. No, I haven't, but I will check out that episode because she's a doll. I love her to death.
So let's see. We'll move down a little bit.
She's a sparkle of light in our otherwise dark world.
She's also the current holder of my black card.
Ooh.
Oh.
I don't know if y'all remember.
Is there an auction?
If y'all remember in 2020, there's that clip of Biden. He was on the Breakfast Club and he goes, "If you're black and don't know whether you should vote for Trump or me, you ain't black." I didn't vote for Biden, so I had to give that up, and I gave it to her.
Okay, and you gave it to her. That's nice. That's sweet. Because if anybody could use the black card, it's Forest Mommy. So,
all right. So, question for me: how is this Mountain Dew experiment comparing to the super spicy Doritos? Also, why not just whiskey?
Thank you.
The Mountain Dew experiment. Now you understand. He mentioned the Doritos. I do this. The super spicy Doritos. I do things that taste weird or are a challenge. I'm just that guy. You remember the episode that never made it to air?
Yeah, when you ate too many edibles and never told me how to work the buttons. That was fun.
That's why it never made it to air. So the Mountain Dew experiment against the spicy Doritos, which they're a different brand, but I would prefer the spiciness because honestly, the only one that's drinkable is the watermelon. The black cherry's garbage. The Mountain Dew is garbage. The Baja Blast is garbage. So that is my takeaway. Watermelon's not bad.
Just out of curiosity, since you got the can sitting right there, how many grams of sugar per serving in a can? And
it's something insane.
It's going to be insane.
0 sugar.
What? What's in it? Yeah. Aspartame?
I'm sure.
There's some other cancer-causing sweetener.
Ooh. It's not monk fruit. I know that.
Let's see. If for reasons of health you're required to eat a pork product, then it means that pork is neither dairy nor meat. Therefore, bacon is a vegetable.
Question. What? What health concern?
No, I just liked what?
What health concern would require one to have pork product?
That's a good question.
How about you Google it?
I have had pork bacon once before.
Well,
see, bacon's overrated. But
it is. I'm not gonna lie. It is. It's overrated. It really is. But if you put it on a cheeseburger,
that is fire.
Yes. It is. I like bacon. I would rather have sausage in the morning. 100%.
Yeah,
of the time.
Me too.
If I'm getting a breakfast sandwich or a bagel breakfast sandwich, sausage is going on there. But if I'm having a burger and I have an extra 45 cents, put bacon on that burger.
Woo. Wow.
All right. So
whoever is
Colonel Angus, Hex went after his parents drug him there.
No, he had to go as a child. Like he's required to go where his parents take him.
Exactly.
They didn't drug him.
She might
and
be
then
drunk.
Take him.
Colonel might be drunk. So
yeah, it is. It is an MO for Steve. So
Makabe Designs, which is, I'm assuming that's how you pronounce that. Egyptologists and Egyptophiles have issues with the Hoteps. Of course they do. They're making up history.
because they're inventing a story. Yeah.
Elephant Man says that Malcolm X was killed because he was getting blacks and whites on the same page. And there's a lot of missing of Malcolm X, which I need to read his autobiography. I have a copy of it, but I haven't read it yet. I need to.
I do too.
I'm not going.
Be honest. Oh God, this is a funny story. It's just some random. This is 4 years ago now. I was with my dad. We had this market doing some grocery shopping, and we're getting meat from these vendors. And then these vendors, they're just like this older white couple. And the guy looks at me and goes, "Hey, you look like Malcolm X." I'm like, "Thanks." And then I told some friends that, and he made a meme of me of it's the movie from the movie poster.
Right.
He just put my face over it. I'll send it to you when I remember.
Anarchy says, Hex sounds like a sexy young Morgan Freeman.
Oh God, I can actually do a pretty decent Morgan Freeman.
Do it.
Impersonation.
Do it.
Okay.
I'll do an impersonation if you do.
And I will determine whether it's sexy or not.
That moment when you realize that it is Morgan Freeman who was on the Mad Ones podcast.
I gotta give it to you. That is a dead on Morgan Freeman. I am really impressed.
Dadgummit. I said I would do one, but I can't remember who I do anymore. It's been so long since I've done impressions.
I do recall an episode where you and the guest spent 10 minutes doing Alex Jones impressions.
Okay, no, that wasn't me. I didn't do the impressions. That was two other dudes. But I did do a short saying as Alex Jones recently, which was said to be good. But I used to do so many impressions too. Like, did you ever watch Homestar Runner?
No.
Hex, did you ever watch Homestar Runner at all?
No.
Man, so this is an impression lost on you. I won't do it. Next episode, I will find a time to actually pull up an impression that people will know. But I can't.
Is that an anime?
It's been so long. No, it was an online series. I don't do anime.
Okay.
You know I don't like. You know I'm not attracted to children.
Oh my God.
Sorry.
Oh, Tet was supposed to post something that I'm going to retweet.
All right. So Mekabe Designs also says, I think I meant rather than the generic Jews run the world, and maybe I could afford gas, I'd believe it. Is there a doctrinal writing that Jews are specifically evil for some religious reason?
To my knowledge, no. The anti-Semitism that I heard was basically the Jews run the world and are trying to destroy it. Shit.
Cool.
That's basically what I heard.
Randy asks, how do magnets work?
Nobody knows.
I don't know. They somehow lead to the creation of white people who want to enslave black people. I haven't figured that part out yet.
All right. So I want to thank Makabet for telling me the pronunciation because I like to know these things. But it's Hebrew for hammer, which I dig that. I do have a hammer tattoo, but it's a Mjolnir. I want to get another hammer right here, but a ball peen hammer someday, which is the origin of the French word macabre, because the second book of Maccabees is so awful and full of murder and torture. I've not read Maccabees.
The French are really good at that. Coming up, if there's a conceptual idea that needs a word to identify it, the French are so good. So when I'm trying to think of a word for something, I'm like, there's got to be a word. It's probably French for this exact situation. Like when you get a rock in your shoe. I am sure the French have a term for when you have a pebble in your shoe. I don't know what it is, but I know that they have one.
All right. So now there's conversation about, I need to read the book of Maccabees. I've read several extra canonical texts, but that's one I haven't read. I do need to do that later. But they're talking about impersonations in here. So Colonel Angus would like to know if you can do an Alex Jones hex.
Oh boy.
I found this on the web.
Okay, shut up, Siri.
Cam, I gotta be honest with you. I'm a little retarded.
That's so good. Oh my god. It's really good.
Let's think.
Very
What's a good
impressed.
Alex Jones law or line? I'm just gonna go with the globalists. That's what I'm gonna do.
I will be back in 2.
Okay, so they've also asked for every Elephant Man asked everyone do Clinton and a Trump. I really can't do a Clinton. I assume you mean Bill. I did not have sexual relations with that woman. I can't do a Bill. But Trump, I'll just give you China.
That was
China.
That was actually really good.
Because it's not China. It's like the second half of the word vagina. It's China. Anarchitty is asking for Strong Bad. Okay. It's been a long time since I've done Strong Bad. What would be, let's see. I guess I could sing the Trogdor song. Embarrassing. Trogdor was a man. I mean, he was a dragon man. I mean, he was just a dragon. I can't do anymore. But holy crap, for Hugo Guts. It's a terrible impression, and I'm so sorry.
Someone
I used to do all of them.
Someone asked me to do one of Morgan Freeman's lines from Shawshank Redemption.
Do it.
I got one. Okay. I like to think that the first thing that went through his head, other than that bullet, was how in the hell Andy Dufresne ever got the best of him.
I'm trying to think of other ones. Because here. Tell me how this is. I don't want to whistle too hard in the mic. Hey there, Paperboy. You like raisins, Paperboy? I got some raisins in my pocket. Grasp them real tight. Do you recognize Herbert the Pervert from Family Guy?
God damn it. I fucking knew I knew that. That was really good. Holy shit.
The force surrounds us. It penetrates us. But we must move on. So let's get to the fun question, and I'll ask you some. Actually, we'll wait for the fun question. But since we've had some interaction on Twitter, I'll ask you the put you on the spot question.
Oh boy.
Which is, what is your favorite thing about me?
Shit. This really is a put you on the spot question, ain't it? God damn it.
It absolutely is.
Very much is, yeah.
You can say the beard. It's okay.
The beard is pretty fucking base. I'm not gonna lie.
I'll let you go on that one.
No, but I don't know. I guess, especially recently after you got your ability to get journalists fired is impeccable.
Thank you. So let's see. There was another question that I had. What was
the big one?
No, not the big one. I wanted to wait for the big one.
Okay.
There was a question that I heard today that I thought was just so dumb that it should be asked, but I can't remember what it was. So in lieu of that, what was your favorite part of this conversation?
Oh, just probably is going over the ridiculousness of the Yakub story.
Yeah.
That was pretty fun. Yeah.
I'm glad to have read that. It's hilarious and I love it. Colonel Angus says, just say the tattoos. You can also compliment my tattoos. I accept
tattoos
that.
are pretty dope.
It's a point of pride. I also find it hilarious. Regularly, I will retweet people who say that tattoos are disgusting or bad or no one should get them, agreeing with them just to watch them retweet it, knowing what I am, because that brings me humor, and I love that.
Main reason I don't have tattoos. I don't have anything against tattoos, but I have a fear of needles. It might be a legit phobia. So
Here.
It's sort of needles, but it's not exactly the same thing. Like I've had both. I prefer tattoo needles over what's it called?
Like medical needles.
Yeah. What's the word?
Injection?
Yeah, but there's a word that I'm missing. But it's fine. Elephant Man says, my favorite thing about you is you don't care that you look like Walter White's gay biker brother. That's true. I don't care. The only difference is if I were truly gay, I would have a goatee instead of a beard.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I mean, I would put any thought or action into my actual beard. But big question time. When we rebranded this show, before it was kind of not as good as I think it is now. But when we rebranded, when we really hypodermic needles. Thank you, Essie.
Good job.
Thank you. That is the word I was looking for. But when we rebranded and we moved in this different direction, it was in the midst of a pandemic. It was in the midst of the government's response to COVID. And there were a lot of people. I knew people, really good people, who lost brothers and sisters, mothers and fathers to suicide throughout this thing, where they lost their jobs. And when they lost their jobs, they went back into drugs. And when they went into drugs, it ended up killing them. And so it's been a very dour, awful 2 years. And during that time, I wanted to me and Jessica wanted to bring light into the darkness. And so one of the things we wanted to do is to center the show around the concept of hope, which the cool thing about hope is it means all sorts of different things to all sorts of different people. And so I get to, when I answer this question, I answer it in one way, and I'll answer it in two different ways, usually kind of the overall and the smaller answer. But is there something in your life that is in your house, in your city, in your state, in your country, globally, doesn't matter what level, doesn't matter how big anyone else thinks it is there anything that gives you hope and the motivation to carry on right now in your life that we could share with the audience? You can say my beard for this one too if you want.
I would say probably just my desire to try and bring people together so we can all get through, because there are some tough times ahead, and I think people need to put aside a lot of these petty squabbles, and I think I'm pretty decent at that. So, like this whole conversation was about me growing up in a cult that's pretty racist against white people, and opening or waking up to how fucked up it is and moving away from it.
Right.
And if I can do it, I think anyone can.
Yeah. Well, that's a good answer,
awesome.
because it is something that bears repeating, because I think so often the world we live in and the news cycles we live in and the government we live under will make you think that there's no hope and that you cannot escape, that you need them, that you need these things, you need this consumerism, you need an indeterminable amount of things to survive. And being able to break the narrative that you've broken, that me and Jessica have broken in different ways. We both of us have broken different narratives throughout our lives. And knowing that someone can break down the narrative is a story worth telling. And this is something that I've talked about a lot recently, because I keep being asked on to different shows and different things. And I'm not a political guy. I left that in my past. I'm not interested in it for the most part. But I keep being asked the questions of, how do we win? How do we do these things? How do we make this happen? And the same thing I tell them every time is, you need to make people laugh and you need to tell them a story. It's narrative and it's story that changes the world. Because if it weren't for narrative, you wouldn't know Moses' name. You wouldn't know Jesus's name. You wouldn't know any of these people's names. Right. You wouldn't know these things if it weren't for the story. And so if we're centered in story and telling our stories and making compelling cases using story, which connects every human being. That's why Hollywood makes more money than any other industry, any other art, is because they're telling stories. And if we can wrap our heads around the importance of story and be able to tell our own in ways that are needed, we can change the world. But we have to start by writing our own story.
Yes, sir.
And that's what people miss, is they start trying to change the world before they've written their own story. Not to wax too philosophical on you, but that's what you made me think of. So, Hex, we're going to wrap it up now. We really appreciate you coming on. You have a very interesting history. You have a very interesting point of view. You look as good in a cowboy hat as I do, and I appreciate you coming on and spending some time drawing with us, because this is one of the highlights of my week, to be able to talk to people that I like, that have good stories, and that are interesting. So I appreciate you coming on very deeply.
I appreciate the invite.
You're welcome. But before we go, I do want to let people know where to find you. And I'm dumb, so I didn't actually put it into the ticker, and I'm going to do that right this second so that it goes across the screen and people don't have to guess how to spell things. But if you would like to follow Hex on Twitter, you can follow him at Hexcelerate. That's HEXCELLERATE. He sells his music, or at least releases his music, over on Bandcamp. Same spelling, hexcelerate.bandcamp.com. Is there anything else you would like people to go to? Because that's what's on your Twitter. That's what I grabbed. Is there anything else?
SoundCloud is also Hexcelerate. Instagram, YouTube, all the same, Hexcelerate.
Awesome.
Bandcamp is the best place to get the music. It's free, but if you want to throw me a few bucks, the option is there.
Hey, throw a coin to your Witcher, man.
Yeah, toss a coin to your Witcher.
But yeah, so other than that, like I said, I really appreciate you coming on, and we will pull you off the screen for us to talk through the other crap. If you want to hang out and talk afterwards, just stay there. If not, okay, I'm fine with that too. I appreciate you deeply. You're muted, Jessica. I feel like you're saying nice things.
I was saying, thank you for coming. I really enjoyed the conversation.
All right. We'll see you on Twitter. Make sure to retweet this once I do the big monster tweet, okay?
I will.
See ya. Okay. All right. For the rest of you beautiful people who decided to stick around and listen to us for a full hour and 39 minutes, we have a lot of cool stuff coming up. Next week, we're talking to a girl named Kayla Cox. She was in the what is called the Hebrew Roots, or the Torah observant sect of Christianity, which I have my thoughts and issues on. But she left that sect in order to go back to a more orthodox version of Christianity. So we're going to talk to her about that next week. We're going to talk about where she was, what she did, etc. After that, our good friend Kim Sheng's coming on. It's the last episode of July. It's our venting episode. If there's Kim is a great person. She's really into stoicism and philosophy and all sorts of things. If there's anything, if you've listened to her episodes before, you know how cool she is. She's also in a band. She's a bassist. If you have any questions that you want to add to that conversation, please let us know. Beyond that, our good friend Monica Perez is back for the first episode of August. And you know how much we love her. So we're going to be talking to her soon. And then after that, surprise, Jessica, I have a contentious episode for us to go into. After that, a guy named Nick Quint will be joining us. He has been studying for the last several years about the concept of ordination of women in the church, and he is for it. So we will be talking to him about that, about his case, about his arguments, and we're going to be there to ask questions and learn. After that, there are some people I also know who are kind of against the concept, and I want to hear their case as well. So we'll schedule that for a later date to get the antithesis of that. Also, I have asked our friend Glenn Peoples and Chris Date, former guests of the show, to list out any questions that they have for it, because they are working through this concept as well. Right. So any questions anyone has about this, let us know. It won't be a contentious conversation, but it is a contentious topic.
No, we're nice people.
Right. And I want to hear what he thinks. Right. I want to hear what he has to say. Right. I'm sympathetic to the idea up to a certain point, and I have questions beyond that. But I'm extremely interested in this conversation. So beyond that, the only things I have to tell you is, again, repeating what we said at the beginning. If you'd like to support us, the best way to support us is patreon.com/themadOnes. Mm-hmm. The second best way, and really if you buy multiple, could be better, is if you get a t-shirt, a mug, or a tank top over at wearethemadones.com/store. I apologize. I have acid reflux right now. If I pause weird, it just happens. I'm on Twitter at HamCarlos. Jessica's on Twitter at SoupCanarchist. If you're listening and would rather watch every Wednesday, we are on YouTube. We are on Rockfin. We are on Odyssey Live. YouTube happens to be the best place still, simply because we can pull your comments up on screen. So if you're listening, you can join us live every Wednesday night at 8:30 p.m. until August, when we will shift that to Thursdays. We are making a little change there in the future. But subscribe to YouTube, like it, share it with your friends. We need your help to continue growing. Beyond that, if you want to listen, we're on all podcatchers. If you want to listen directly and download the episode yourself, you can go to our website, wearethemadones.com. Is there anything else that I neglected to mention?
No, I think you got all the housekeeping stuff. Just if you are watching on YouTube, please hit the subscribe button and the like button. That really helps us and get up there in the algorithm. And one day they might pay us to be stupid on the internet. So that'll be fun.
And if you liked any specific portion of this episode that you think would be good to share with the world and share in a clip, let me know. Or go on YouTube and clip it yourself and share that. But if you let me know, I'll make a professional clip that I can put on TikTok, on Twitter, on Facebook, everywhere. Tell us what you liked so that we can share that and go on. That's all I've got for you. Thank you for sticking around for housekeeping. Thank you for listening to the show. We love you. We appreciate you. We're learning and growing, and I hope you are too. So with that, dear listeners, dear watchers, dear viewers, whichever one you prefer, you have a chance to be a light in the world. So go light it up.